you, Rashi, for the warm welcome. And yeah, I'd like to send out a warm welcome to everybody in the world as well. Yeah, Rashi already said, my name is Arndt Linkscheid. I'm solution owner for the cybersecurity and data protection products at SAP. And today, together with me is Dr. Michael Schmidt. He's a product owner of Enterprise Threat Detection. Michael, can you just quickly say hello to everybody?
Yeah, hello. From my warm welcome, from my side, warm welcome as well. We will guide you through the session, and together with us is additionally our colleague Amit Bajaj from SAP Australia. Maybe you can introduce yourself as well, Amit.
Hi everyone, warm welcome. I'm Amit from SAP Australia. I'm a principal consultant in the space of security. I help implement enterprise threat detection and other cybersecurity products.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Amit. And yeah, again, protecting the intelligent enterprise with SAP Enterprise Threat Detection. That's our topic for today. That's the topic for our workshop. Now you should be able to see the screen. And yeah, sorry for that inconvenience. Yeah, hopping straight into the agenda for today. So first of all, we would like to look at an introduction to SAP Enterprise Threat Detection. What is it? How does it help securing your SAP landscape? Some typical use cases, and give you some more additional information on the SAP Enterprise Threat Detection Cloud Edition along the presentation as well. And then we're going to go into a first basis demo of Enterprise Threat Detection. So we're going to show you something, what we can do with inside of an SAP system. And then Michael will take over and walk you through Enterprise Threat Detection, to the basics of Enterprise Threat Detection. And then we're going to lead this into a kind of a demo of an attack and defense scenario. So I will start doing some suspicious things within the SAP system, and then Michael will always take over the screen and explain everything within Enterprise Threat Detection, what you can see within Enterprise Threat Detection, and how you can start then modeling patterns and yourself and do investigations yourself. Okay, and then we're getting closer to the end of the session, or then we will organize you for the later self-paced hands-on sessions as well, and then we can lead it into a Q&A session too. So if you have then any questions, just put them into the chat, and we will try to answer all of them. All right, so quickly, first introduction to Enterprise Threat Detection. So I've been actually always asked, of many times been asked, are SAP systems really under attack, or is that just a promotion of whatsoever trying to sell software? But there is some really good hints I think I can give you to clarify that as well. SAP systems are under attack too, and that we would have to take care of the SAP systems as well. So when I just simply quickly look at the news that arrive every week or every other day about new ransomware attacks, botnets, organizations are not able to reach their IT systems anymore, so they somehow encountered a denial of service there, or somebody triggered a denial of service for the whole organization, and then the organization is being bound to pay a ransom to the hacker, and for then getting back online with their systems again. So that's an attack that we see quite often. But usually the money is earned on that end while receiving that ransom payment. Okay, so but that's one side of the medal. The other side of the medal is then when looking at the other news, I would call them, this and that amount of money, IP, or patient health information data, something like this has been stolen from an organization. And then we just have to quickly think about, where does this money usually reside? Hopefully not somewhere on a file system. Hopefully it is somewhere in the database. And if I was the hacker, try to hack the database, it's a little bit more complicated, I would say, and then I maybe end up with an encrypted database, so I cannot do a lot with this. maybe cannot even take the data from there. So, but as we know as well, 80% of the successful attacks are being carried out with hijacked users, hijacked passwords as well. And if I'm able to get a good user account, it was a good password, into an SAP system that sits on top of that database, I can just quickly log or simply log on to that SAP system, browse through any kinds of transactions, have a look at any kind of IP, sales information, tax information or revenue information of an organization, or other IP information, or personal data of employees or customers, and so on and so forth, within the system. And I can start manipulating any processes within this system, and therefore I can then for sure make any kind of make any money out of this too. And these are the attacks that are really then, when they are encountered, are in the news with this and that amount of money, and so on has been stolen. And this is how we see as well, hey, that's really SAP system. It can happen to my SAP system as well, and we really would have to look at our SAP systems and defend our SAP systems. Okay, and therefore, we're trying to help our customers as well with enterprise threat detection. We do see that sobering statistics. I know it's millions of US dollars here. 5.52 million average total cost of a data breach, and so on. But my focus is not really the money here. My focus is actually looking at enterprise threat detection. Is this 280 days time to contain a security breach in average is 280 days. So it takes 280 days until an organization recognizes that there is a hacker inside of their IT environment somewhere, and then it takes, and that includes as well the time to remove the hacker from the network. So that's quite a long time for a hacker, where he can have a look at data, intellectual property, business transactions, and so on and so forth. And it is a 30% probability of in experiencing a data breach within 2 years. So within 6 years, so you're getting close to 90%, and that's almost 100% in 6 years time. So it is not really a matter of not being hacked. It is just being a matter of time when the next hack to an organization will happen. And this is why we really then would have to take care of our SAP systems. So SAP helps all of our customers quite a lot with, for example, the SAP Secure Operations Map. The SAP Secure Operation Map has been reworked just a while ago, focusing really more on the organization, first of all, more on the people of an organization. So an organization and all the people within an organization, first of all, have to be aware of that SAP systems can be under attack too. And then I can go and start leveraging the right security governance throughout an whole organization, start doing the right risk management as well for my SAP system. So not only for IT systems, we've been doing that for quite a while, but SAP systems are often a little bit a blind spot here. And then I can start talking about processes like regulatory processes for being compliant, data protection and privacy processes, audit and fraud management. So it is then really people, processes, and then we can start talking about technology. And technology is then the application layer of the SAP system, but this application layer has to be secured first of all as well. So and that's not only user and identity management, authentication, single sign-on, roles and authorization. That's what customers been doing for a long time. That's what organizations actually understand best, because that's how they touch actually the SAP system. It's getting a little bit more complicated when we start talking about the ABAP code that customers create in the SAP systems too. So we have to take care of that there are no code vulnerabilities in there, and we have to go to the system security hardening. So we have to make sure that all the security parameters are set correctly within the environment, so nobody can easily break into the system. So, and since an SAP system holds something around 400 million lines of ABAP code, there is a few hundred security hardening parameters to be set correctly within an SAP system, and to make sure nobody can just easily walk into the system. And then we can start talking about the security ABAP code, the security SAP code as well. And that means actually patch your SAP systems as soon as there is a new patch out from SAP. Actually, within these new patch descriptions, there's always a part describing the vulnerability, or there's the code fix in there, and with this description and the code fix, hackers can rework the information from this and start building the exploit to it. And then what we've seen already is that 2-3 days after these exploits are being traded on the darknet, and that's not good. So you have to patch your systems as soon as possible. Maybe you plan a downtime even before you know which patches you have to exactly implement, but it is pretty sure that there is a patch Tuesday every second Tuesday of a month, and maybe you just simply plan a patch or a downtime for that time, and on that Tuesday or Wednesday to implement the patches as soon as possible into your SAP systems. And then we can start talking as well about security monitoring and forensics, and that's a question that I've been asked many times. Hey, but if I haven't started doing security hardening and custom code security, and I still didn't have implemented my patches for a long time, is that worthwhile starting with security monitoring and forensics? Yes, because as soon as you start switching on the first parameters for the security hardening, so you patch the first vulnerabilities, you have to make sure that these new settings are not being reverted again after a couple of days, because somebody had maybe some trouble in the business because of this and that setting, something was not working, and that everything is being switched off again. So this is what you then already straight see within the security monitoring and forensics area, and you would see suspicious user behavior straight away within your system. And so it is a good idea not going step by step. So first I do security hardening or custom code or start implementing my patches. It is a step that you have to take in one go. You don't have to go for 130 patterns in one go for the security monitoring. Maybe you start with 10, 20 for the security parameters that you've already put into the right place. Okay, so proceeding this a little bit, having a look at the SAP depth and breadth of supporting the intelligent enterprise. So we do have the intelligent enterprise here right in the middle of our slide, and that's surrounded actually by people, processes, and then technology. So this is the very first thing that you would have to take care of within an organization is people. People have to be aware of that SAP systems can be under attack as well, that SAP systems are attacked as well, and only with the right people on board you will be able to leverage the right processes in an organization. And only when you have the right processes being set up, you can then start talking about which technology I'm going to use for this. All right. When circling around this intelligent enterprise here and trying to leave the circle, the gatekeeper is awareness. And then we can quickly start talking about the 4 quadrants here of identity and access governance, which is the quadrant we know best actually. And then we can talk about data protection, privacy, cybersecurity, enterprise risk and compliance. That's where organizations are very mature of as well, but they still don't see or still don't have the real quantification of all the risks arriving from cybersecurity and data protection. So just imagine, I said already something like 80% of the successful hacks are triggered via stolen passwords or stolen password hashes and compromised user identities. So maybe I start my circle here with an identity and access governance. So maybe suddenly somehow a new user is being created within the area of identity and access governance, or a user lifted or got elevation of his authorizations for the SAP environment. So maybe that's an important information that's coming from identity and access governance that should go to cybersecurity, to threat management. Inform the threat management component. Hey, there's a new user with SAP all authorizations. Maybe that's suspicious, but nothing has happened yet. So then cybersecurity maybe informs data protection and privacy, in particular data masking, for example, to mask all critical or sensitive fields within the SAP environment when that firefighter user or that compromised user logs onto the system. So he cannot see that critical information. And then this information has to as well go into enterprise risk and compliance to quantify the risk. So what is the monetary side of this, and the dashboarding side of this? So how can I visualize this to a CISO, to a board level area, that something fishy is going on within my SAP environment somehow? And this is then how this circle closes, and where all these components start playing then together. And this is what we would have to achieve for being able for really protecting the intelligent enterprise. And the threat management component is only one component out of it, but it is a very important one. All right, so just quickly proceed from here. Another angle I've created here is the NIST cybersecurity framework. Another angle to look at this is the NIST cybersecurity framework here, with these pillars here of identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. So within the identification area, we do see the asset management, the business environment. So these are our SAP systems. We have to be we have to do a risk assessment actually to find out which are the most important systems, where is exactly the data that is so critical within these systems, and for being able to leverage the right risk management strategy within an organization. And we can start talking. So that's actually the first step that we can do. And then we can start talking about protection. So access control, that's been done by many organizations, but can always be refined. And then we can start doing awareness trainings, data security, and start leveraging the right protective technologies for the organization. So vulnerability management for the configuration, for the coding, or the patch management strategy, and so on and so forth. But then at the same time, I can as well start detecting anomalies within my SAP environment through a continuous security monitoring, and therefore I would have to have the right detection processes. And this is exactly what we achieve with enterprise threat detection. See the anomalies with the continuous security monitoring and with the right detection processes being in place within enterprise threat detection, for being able to respond to any kinds of cyber attacks. Because if I only try to protect my environment with protective technology, I will not see any suspicious user behavior. So I always would have to go beyond this protection layer here and simultaneously tackle the hackers with the detect and respond area here as well. And that's why I need then enterprise threat detection in my organization, for being then able to have the right response, to have the right response planning and think about the response. It's not always a good idea to just simply shut down the SAP system. So this is the system where organizations earn their money with. So I cannot just simply shut down the SAP system because of a maybe in first place a minor hacker attack. So maybe I can just simply take out that single user from that system. Maybe that's a cheaper idea. So I have a response planning here, and as soon as I start working on this process here, I will recognize, okay, I can mitigate issues here, I can do improvements here. And with these improvements, I can go back to identify, protect, and detect as well for having a better response next time and a better recovery planning and so on and so forth. And this is where then enterprise threat detection especially helps us within the detection and in the response area. Okay, having said that, I just filled this slide as with all the other SAP products, starting within the identify area with the SAP Early Watch Alert service. Maybe you will not be able to go to a security maturity level 4, 5 with the SAP Early Watch Alert service, but it gives you a very, very good first indication. And that's a cost-free service. So it's the standard tools. These are the green standard tools here from SAP, and as well the SAP configuration validation, the SAP system recommendations here as well, tools that come for free where customers can just simply use via, for example, the solution manager. If we do want to enhance this a little bit, we can have a look at SAP Focused Run, which actually is a huge tool out of the cybersecurity, is one of the cybersecurity solutions as well, where we can then check for the whole configuration and the patch management. And it's not only security configuration, the Focused Run covers the whole operational part of a larger IT or SAP landscape. And then we can go into towards the ABAP test cockpit. That's for sure a standard tool as well. So it should be actually marked green within this slide here. But in addition, you can always enhance the functionality of the ABAP test cockpit with the SAP Code Vulnerability Analyzer to find all the vulnerabilities in the ABAP code. And then for sure, we can add the SAP 45 by Micro Focus here for all the non-ABAP code that might be written on top of the HANA database, like SQL and JavaScripts here can be checked with the 45 solution. And then for sure, single sign-on is a very famous solution from SAP here, from the cybersecurity solutions, and of course the user and identity and access management, which is already one of the compliance solutions. Data custodian plays in here as well, but very useful here too is the UI data protection, masking and logging to refine the user and identity management and data access management process within an organization to protect sensitive information. So users cannot always see the information in the screen, and that as well plays very well together with SAP Enterprise Threat Detection, as I mentioned already on the earlier slide. Okay, stepping forward to this, all of this information for sure should then come together and start processing all the results and threats and other information into process control, into risk management from SAP, and into a security dashboarding from there on. All right. So let's start talking about enterprise threat detection. What is enterprise threat detection? Actually, enterprise threat detection stops security breaches in today's SAP S/4HANA business application. But for sure, it's not only the SAP S/4HANA business application. It is for sure as well the ECC systems. It's the J2EE, and it is the business technology platform, and it is many other cloud solutions there as well from SAP. And what we're doing actually is we're giving the transparency to the user behavior and see any kinds of anomalies happening within the business application to identify, stop security breaches in real time. So we have a HANA database underneath enterprise threat detection, which is really lightning fast because ETD was one of the first applications that SAP created natively right on top of the HANA databases, and it can really highly efficiently run through huge amounts of data in almost no time, really in real time when we're examining the data. I guess you will see this later on during the presentation from Michael, when we just simply switch and filter with inside of the different logs to see any kind of data here. So the challenge, actually, we talked about this. We do have a huge increasing number of hacker attacks. Regulatory requirements are very important for organizations as well. I do have to audit my SAP systems as well. And I do have to have all the security and compliance controls under control. And that's what I can achieve then later on as well with enterprise threat detection. Roles and authorizations, we've learned that already as well, are not enough because you already heard it, 80% of the successful attacks are carried out via some hijacked user identity. And for sure, perimeter and IT infrastructure security is very important to have, but there's an SAP system exists of 400 million lines of ABAP code and thousands or hundreds of security parameters that have to be set correctly, and therefore you would have to monitor this as well. And then we have to analyze this huge amount of data actually coming from those application systems. And these logs are way more rich in information than when we compare it to logs coming from any hubs, routers, switches, technology devices or IT devices. All right, so the solution then actually performs, or within the solutions, we can perform forensic investigations, search for threats, detect any kinds of anomalies. So we get the system transparency here. We can correlate all the different types of events to one picture to really pinpoint out, okay, this user is now doing something suspicious. We do have all the audit logs in one central place within enterprise threat detection, completely manipulation safe, unfiltered, very important. So we take all of the events, we don't filter any events, we just take them all. So that's how we then later can go back to correlate that whole picture of a user behavior, and then we normalize the data as well. So we put them into a readable format. If you ever try to read one of the SAP logs manually, it's cumbersome. So better we put them in a normalized way, and then you will see it is very easy to read those logs. Okay, and with all this technology on board, we can then detect all the threats, safeguard the operations of an organization, reduce efforts for conducting audits, reduce efforts for seeing any suspicious user behavior, gain the transparency, and simplify the analysis of suspicious user behavior. All right. Well, enterprise threat detection is within the market already for quite a few years. It's been used by more than 400 customers. Sounds a little bit a small that figure, but it is the bigger organizations at the moment using this. But we do get quite a lot of response from small and mid-sized businesses nowadays as well. For sure, there's many organizations are in the DAX 30 or in the Dow 30. Lots of interest comes from the defense sector as well. We just recently sold enterprise threat detection several times to the Russian area. They really understood the problematic. I don't know why, but they really understood it, and they're fighting this on that end as well. Very successful with enterprise threat detection. And for sure, enterprise threat detection is supported by the world-leading auditing companies. And for sure, we do have implementation partners worldwide that can help organizations to set up enterprise threat detection, implement enterprise threat detection, and run enterprise threat detection, even in a security operations center 24/7. All right, going ahead. So maybe some examples before we proceed with this. So what have we seen in the past? Where was enterprise threat detection already helpful at customers? For example, we saw cases where user data was leaked in form of the password hashes. So we know all the, sometimes a little bit weak password hashes being stored in the SAP system, for instance, within the field B code. It's not very safe anymore. So if you still have password hashes in there, somebody is able to download them. He can recompile the correct passwords within minutes. And even if that happens to an older quality assurance system where maybe nobody really takes care of anymore, maybe this is still the same password, the same user uses nowadays in the productive environment. So it's always still worthwhile for a hacker to try this out. If he gets this password from another system, to go to the productive environment and just simply give it a go. And then he would see if he was successful or not. And often this ends up with an SAP all authorization in the productive environment. Privileged user often manipulated. That's what we've seen quite a few times as well. Managed to manipulate his or her salary information, or just simply spy out information within HR records, which can be quite interesting here too. So usually this is an eye-opener to customers as well. So when they read through this list and they say, something like this happened already to us as well. And hey, if we could detect this with enterprise threat detection, that would be really good. So trying to explain enterprise threat detection a little bit to you. First of all, maybe we just simply have a very close look or short look to the security audit log or security audit log compliance in general. I still know quite a few customers who still struggle with the security audit log or switching on the security audit log, since it is or can be a little bit of a complex configuration. If you don't configure it completely correct, it might cause performance problems in the productive SAP system. So that's not what customers really like. So they then start filtering the information of the security audit log, but filtering, as we've already learned, means we lose information. Then the security audit log is very difficult to read by humans, cannot be searched in an efficient way, and cannot really be stored for audit purpose here as well. So companies, organizations are struggling, and I do see many companies still here that are not compliant with only looking at the security audit log, which is one out of more than 20 different logs that you would have to look at within an SAP environment. Maybe it is the most famous or the most known one, but that's only one out of 20 or even more than that. Maybe it is important, but it is as important as well to look at all the other logs too. So what we're doing with an enterprise threat detection actually is we switch, kind of the way you usually configure the security audit log in your S4 or in your ECC system, switch on the enterprise threat detection configuration in that system, and then directly transfer all log information via the SAP kernel to enterprise threat detection. So there's no file persistency in between, there's no filtering in between. We just take it all and just put it into enterprise threat detection. So that's then manipulation safe, because we don't have a file persistency anymore, so nobody can tamper with the file anymore. We don't have any real additional configuration, because we have to filter or we have to do it only for special users and so on and so on. So all that configuration of the RSR config goes away. I only switch on one switch, and then all security audit logs are always available in a readable format within enterprise threat detection. And then there are continued, as soon as the data arrives, the data is continuously automated, analyzed on an automated base. And then all the logs are readable for humans as well, and you're audit proof at any time. So only switching on enterprise threat detection because of the compliance for the security audit log in an organization, for only that step, it is worthwhile just switch on enterprise threat detection. And all other things that come then on top with continuous automated analysis and so on and so forth. So, but only having all those logs within enterprise threat detection would give a huge step to an organization for being more compliant. Not more secure in that case, only storing the data does not help, but it'll first of all help the organizations for being more compliant here. Okay, but then everybody, or I often hear, yeah, but why don't I then just simply take all that SAP log information or all that SAP log data and throw it into my existing CM solution? And we've seen many organizations already tried this. There's two types of organizations then. Some of them call the project successfully when they implemented 10 different event types from the security audit log in their CM solutions, or they called it unsuccessful after trying this, achieving this for months and months and months and wasting quite a lot of time and money. Enterprise threat detection actually brings the semantic understanding of all the SAP logs and is licensed on monitored users as well. And therefore, we don't have to look at the huge amount of data that we are processing that will not cause any costs. And only these two drivers are very are important for organizations, because trying to put this into the CM solution is really difficult, and it's often cumbersome for organizations. And we do work together with all the generic CM solution vendors worldwide, and this is exactly what all of the SAP Enterprise Threat Detection customer does. They take all the logs from the SAP environment and their applications into Enterprise Threat Detection, analyze everything in there, and as soon as they have a proper alert within Enterprise Threat Detection, they then just simply take the data and push it over into their generic CM solutions to push this information into their security operations center, which is then usually monitored 24/7, and so on and so forth. And so then we really achieve the transparency to the security people of an organization as well to the SAP systems. Okay, proceeding a little bit from here, trying to look at how does enterprise threat detection work. So first of all, we do have our columns here back again of identify and protect. And we have, so this is somehow our wall, our perimeter security here. And we do have our hacker outside of this. And but if the hacker does have enough time, money, and a little bit of an intelligence, he will be able to breach through this wall. It is not a matter of if or not, it is just a matter of time when he will be able to breach through this wall. And the experience here is this 30% within 2 years' time. And then it is this 280 days actually where hackers are inside of the organization's network, where they can have also access to the SAP systems. So, right, that's 206 days until they're recognized, and it's another 73 days or 74 days until the organization is able to remove the hacker from the network. And for this time, the hacker has access to all kinds of IP processes, important data of an organization, and so on. The question is now, when are you able to stop such a data breach? Is that here, 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 or maybe you don't even recognize it at all? And that's then where enterprise threat detection comes in place. Pillars detect and respond from our NIST cybersecurity framework. Try to have the most earliest interception here. Cannot always be here or here or here, but hopefully it is there. So how does a hacker attack usually work? It's not a thing of one day. I think we've recognized this already. So maybe it is really somebody spied out a user identity and starts working on the development system, for instance. Maybe he's doing some discovery in the SM59 connections here, and maybe then he's able to somehow shift over to quality assurance system, or maybe get some RFC passwords from here, And with these RFC passwords, maybe is able then later on to log onto the productive environment, start changing a vendor, and then do the outgoing payment. But this is really not a job of one day, because the hacker moves forward, holds still, maybe checks if something is happening or not. And another day, he will do the next step, and then he will do the next step. So maybe this is going from 01/2020. So I should update this 01/2021 to 06/2021, and maybe finally is in the productive environment in March 2022. But within this time, Enterprise Threat Detection collected all the logs from the development area, from the quality assurance system, from the productive environment. Not only the security audit log, the system log, read access log, the SDAD log, user change log, HTTP, SAL log, or change documents, table change, and so on and so on. And we can correlate then all this information together for being able to stop the hacker before he enters the productive environment, latest point in time. Okay, so first of all, we receive all the information from all the SAP systems, start enriching the information, start analyzing and correlating this information. So don't forget the normalization of the log events. And then we can start integrate any other kind of SAP logs or other application logs, non-SAP logs, as well possible IT infrastructure or information from other sources about suspicious IP addresses can be ingested as well, all this kind of stuff. And then we can evaluate all this data on an automated base, and then as well go into any kind of forensic analysis, do threat hunting, and start modeling patterns. And this is what we'd like to do later on within the workshop then as well. So this is a short view into the log data that is supported by Enterprise Threat Detection at the moment. So that's already quite a few. And this is where this is what is being covered as well, by that more than 130 patterns that we deliver out of the box. And there's still some other logs that we would like to connect, or where systems that we would like to be able to connect to Enterprise Threat Detection. It is often not the problem to being able to read the logs. The bigger problem actually is to receive the logs. And if the logs are not there, or not being provided by some applications, we cannot process them in Enterprise Threat Detection. That's the bigger problem than ingesting all the different types of logs into Enterprise Threat Detection. Okay, summarizing this a little bit, in my opinion, really, SAP understands the SAP log files best. We can go for any kind of forensic analysis within Enterprise Threat Detection, do threat hunting, see any kinds of anomalies here, have a generic approach for creating the patterns. It's not based on any kind of fixed test cases. We don't have to go back. You don't have to go back to SAP to have a new pattern. You can just create it yourself within minutes within Enterprise Threat Detection. We deliver specific content, more than 130 patterns already out of the box. And we regularly expand this with our content packages on a bi-monthly basis. And that's being changed now from bi-monthly basis to a monthly basis, since we do deliver now patch information as well to the system. So that is then being covered within these additional content deliveries here too. And that then really bridges the gap between security departments, because IT security departments usually don't talk the language of SAP, and SAP security experts don't talk the language of IT security. So bridging this gap is then really can be achieved with Enterprise Threat Detection. That's what our customers are really doing with the solution as well. And then we do receive all these unfiltered logs as well from from the whole environment, get these manipulations, safe data transfer. So we're really audit proof here, and that helps organizations quite a lot. We can add any kinds of logs like the read access log or the UI logging logs, which have very, very rich information as well about user behavior within an SAP landscape. And therefore, we can then really do a user behavior analysis here, meaning create the whole puzzle, not looking at single puzzle pieces, and being always able to go back. What else did the user do? He's doing something suspicious here. Maybe he did something suspicious somewhere else in the landscape or within the past 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months in the system as well. But maybe I did not recognize it. Okay, so SAP actually is using enterprise threat detection as well. That's yeah, pretty known fact, I think. So the most important thing here actually for me is the sheer performance of enterprise threat detection that we can see here, with processing more than 200,000 events per second. So we can scale with enterprise threat detection for really huge organizations, but we can have as well enterprise threat detection for small organizations, looking only at specific patterns, looking at only specific logs. And then you don't need a huge database behind it. The databases can be very, very small nowadays. You can start analyzing data with a HANA database of 64 gigabytes already. So it doesn't have to be that 7.7 terabyte in memory data here. It can be way less for smaller organizations. So I just brought some other examples with me of organizations that are in the gas sector. So they are analyzing 200 million events per week, and they do have something about 20 to 30 incidents that they then have to work on. Within the project, they had a SIEM solution being done as well. They integrated the solution manager, they integrated another non-SAP application to enterprise threat detection during the project. So that was a quite successful project here as well. Yeah, that's the slide to it. Oh no, they're having the SIEM based on ArcSight that was connected. They have this SAP Service Desk integration here, and they had a third-party document management system, which they integrated into enterprise threat detection as well. And so I had some additional automatic value list filtering on updating employees' vacation information into enterprise threat detection. So you can be very, very creative around this enterprise threat detection solution as well. And they've implemented, even before we did it at SAP, an automated reaction mechanism together with the UI masking solution from SAP here too. So just some other smaller customers, a smaller customer with 3,600 employees and a revenue of 630 million euros. They have an alert peak of 150 alerts per day. Per day, and they have 10,000 patterns executions, and they're ingesting 10 million log events per day into enterprise threat detection. So even such a small company has already quite a huge amount of log data being processed here. So that's a chemical company with more than 100,000 employees and more than 150,000 monitored users being monitored within enterprise threat detection, and alert peaks around 25,000. It's not alert peaks, it's event peaks, 25,000 per second, which is already quite a lot. Okay, I think we can skip this. This is another DAX 30 company with 100,000 users. And yeah, proceeding to our new invention here, actually, is often we've been asked by organizations, hey, how can I run enterprise threat detection? So installation used to be not that easy. We've mitigated this. It's way easier today. But then I still have to have somebody sitting in front of the monitoring, because I would have to do something if a threat happens within my SAP environment. And maybe I don't have that many security specialists within my organizations. So what we've done now is we came up with a new product is called SAP Enterprise Threat Detection Cloud Edition, which arrives actually with a included managed security service. So as a customer, you actually only then have a data collector on your end, enterprise threat detection being hosted completely within the business technology platform, and people sitting in front of enterprise threat detection, looking at all the alerts that are popping up here. And that's where we have then a 24/7 alert generation here for the SAP environment. We have an active alert monitoring. We can inform the customer risk-based and prioritized to the threats that are happening inside of the landscape. And we do bring around 50 standard attack path patterns out of the box. So you don't have to do all that kind of configuration that you would have to do with an on-prem solution anymore with this cloud solution. And planned updates we do have as well here for Enterprise Threat Detection Cloud Edition. We will be able within the upcoming year to have any kind of customized service level agreements. We can have any kinds of committed response times here. So at the moment it is risk-based and prioritized alerting. Later on the upcoming year, we will be able to have committed response times, and we can have any kind of security consulting in here. For sure, time and material based, but if you do have some suspicious user behavior, somebody would have to look with inside of all the different logs, and this is what we can then do on a manual base: forensic analysis, threat hunting, own pattern development, own log ingestion. So if you have additional systems that you would like to connect, no problem. You can do this during the upcoming year to Enterprise Threat Detection Cloud Edition as well. All right, I think we have already made it to the PowerPoint part of this. I think we can skip this slide here as well and jump right into the first live demonstration. Okay, I think you've seen the pop-up here already when my SAP UI timed out on me. So I just quickly have to log on again. So I just simply log on with my user Kirk to my SAP system. So user Kirk actually is a standard user within the SAP system. So maybe his identity was hacked and now I've logged on with the user Kirk to the SAP system, or we can just enhance the scenario here a little bit. So user Kirk does have authorizations to create a new user in the system, or check on another user, maybe the user firefighter in the system. Just have a quick look at the firefighter user. Oops, sorry. Is that locked? Lock, unlock, locked by system manager. So I can unlock the firefighter user, and maybe then I have to change a little bit within his roles and authorizations here, and just simply add some information into this. Oops, I was in edit mode already. Sub all. That's a profile. Sorry, it's not row. So I add a little bit of authorization to them, and then we can have a look at the address data, to the logon data, maybe put in a new password.
I think you need to take off the sub all from the roles in order to save it.
Okay, sorry. Damn it. Thanks for that, Michael. So, but now I probably lost my password. So type this in again. So save. Just let me quickly check the profiles. Okay, we do have now sufficient authorization, so we can then log on with the user firefighter to our system as well. So we go to client 100, we go to firefighter, we type in the new password, and then we can go into English language, so it's better understandable for you. So we have to type in another new password. And here we go. So now we are firefighter in the system. So one way or the other, now user Kirk was hacked, user firefighter was hacked, or the firefighter is just simply fighting the fire in the SAP system. So there's various scenarios, what you can think of, how to get into an SAP system with a high privileged user. And actually, first thing, when I'm in an SAP system with a high privileged user, after I've done my work with the user firefighter, or when I start hacking the system, so first thing I would like to go actually is the RSL config configuration. So that's the security audit log. So that's probably the most known and easiest thing to first of all switch off, since most of the important information of user behavior is written to the security audit log. So I am good as a hacker to switch this security log configuration off. And now nobody should be able to follow up my actions within the SAP environment. So that was actually already the very, very first step of all our live demos that we have planned for you. So now I would like to hand over to Michael, and then we can start looking at the first results within Enterprise Threat Detection and start walking through the product along with the descriptions that Michael will provide for you as well. Okay, Michael, do you like to take over?
So what you see is the starting page of SAP Enterprise Threat Detection. And as we would like to prepare you for a self-paced hands-on session, I will show you just the document that you can already access in the TechEd GitHub, which contains all the exercises. And I will just do the first exercise of that exercises document. So I have the Word documentation of that here. I just wanted to show you what we prepared for you. We prepared 6 different exercises, and one of the exercises is you will get a user in the, we will come to that later, you will get a user in the ETD system, which we provide. And the first exercise is to do a round trip and a navigation within SAP Enterprise Threat Detection in order that you know how to move and navigate in the system. And later on, you can create own use cases, do an own pseudo attack in the connected SAP system. And yeah, it's about processing alerts and investigations, pseudonymization, and monitoring dashboards. So I will now jump into the very first of these as a basic demo of these exercises. And what you see there in that very first exercise, it's always shown via screenshots. So that means you can run through that via a cookbook. And what you see here is the starting page of SAP Enterprise Threat Detection as well. And all the red ones, the red tiles that are shown here, I will run through now in a fast basic demo. So, okay, that's the forensic lab asset. And 1 second, I need that in as a helping hand on the other screen. And we can, for example, jump into monitoring. Monitoring is just the possibility to have an overview, a high-level overview about, for example, a 5,000 meter height view on what happens in my system. And what I see there is just a monitoring screen that I can change by myself, by the way, later on. And this is part of an exercise as well, or where I can have different monitoring pages. And one of these monitoring pages shows, for example, the alerts. For example, the last 3 hours of alerts in comparison. Then here, today and last day, the amount of alerts and the type of the alerts, whether they were high and very high. This refreshes automatically, as you just saw. Then we see as well this week, last week, open, and whether there were investigations triggered, so whether they were really processed, out of which systems do the most of the alerts come, and so on. So this is possible. And what you see here, for example, is already critical aspects that or critical alerts that arrived during the last 1 hour or last 2 hours in the system. Not too many, but what you see here, for example, user firefighter unlocked. This is just the thing that Arndt was doing in the system. Or log on after an access to database table user 02. That means you accessed database table user 02, maybe took out password hashes and later logged on with another user. And as we do that check about over 1 week of time in between the access to the database table and the logon, we get that alert when a logon takes place, because we use that demo system very often. Critical transactions were called, critical function modules were called, and so on. So by that, that is what you can see in such a monitoring page. And as said, in the monitoring page, there are different possibilities to look at different such pages. SAP delivers, for example, as well a default page, which goes into another direction. It shows, for example, not necessarily the alerts, but shows, for example, how many log data arrived, out of which system the most log data arrives, which log data currently arrives, and as well some alert information. And you can change that by clicking on that small tool here. Yeah. If you click on that small tool, you find all the patterns and charts that are within within ETD, and then that you could create by yourself as well, but they are as well in the system. And for example, service transaction calls by system ID, I could select now as a chart, select it, and just change that chart. And after that, I can save that thing as my own monitoring page as I want. And by that, I can change, chart by chart, and change the whole monitoring page as I need it to do. Okay, so that's the 1,000 meter or 10,000 meter height as access to the system while looking into monitoring. If it comes to what is active in the system, what do I see? I can click on the patterns tile here. So I will click on the patterns tile, and what I see as patterns, I see which patterns are active. Is it an anomaly pattern? Is it a standard rule-based pattern? And how often these patterns raised already alerts in the system? And I can click on such a pattern, whatever pattern I take, log on with SAP standard users like SAP Star or Data Dictionary or System User. And if I click on such a pattern, then I can see the details of that pattern, how it is described, how the criticality is maintained in the system. And if I edit that, for example, I can maintain as a customer as well, without changing the pattern itself. I can maintain, for example, the schedule. How often does it run within an hour? Every minute does it run? What is the default severity? Is it active or inactive? I can set it to inactive, or I can change the threshold in such a case. I can set it to test mode in order to test my own patterns, for example, until they are fine and I can use them productively, and so on. So there are possibilities to change these patterns without really changing the content that SAP delivers. And you can do that with your own patterns by yourself as well. So that is what we can do with patterns. I can even jump into the so-called forensic lab in order to see how that pattern is modeled. By that, I click that open button. I will come to the forensic lab later on, but I just do a short jump into that because there you can see, okay, this is a workspace with the name suspicious log on, and there you have just the modeling of such patterns. And I will show that later on how this modeling takes place. All right. So I jump back to the starting page, and what I would like to look at is now value lists, because many patterns are based on value lists. That means, for example, if it comes to an alert based on critical RFC function modules that are called, or critical transactions that are called, they are all caught in value lists, and you can enhance these value lists or change them or even delete something that was delivered by SAP. Let's look into whatever critical value lists about critical function modules. Let's check for that. Where are my critical function modules? Let's search. Critical function modules, and there you see it's, for example, the function modules that we deliver for user change, but as well some other function modules that are considered as critical. Another one is, for example, RFC read table, which is a generic one to read any kind of database table via RFC, for example. So these value lists, you can create your own value lists, and you can add additional function modules, especially if you created own function modules by yourself as a customer, or you can as well say, this one is a normal one, so I would get a lot of false positives, and then I can remove the selected one, and it does not raise an alert, and it's without any change to our value list. So if we do an upgrade, it does not reappear again, for example. Such value lists can be filled automatically. If you do that, you can click on the automated button, and then this is the endpoint, the REST endpoint, via which you can fill and refill that from time to time. If you have special use cases, for example, special users to be excluded from something on a day-by-day basis, then you could each day create a value list or change the value list content via calling that REST endpoint, and change your value list with the content that is in. Okay, so these value lists can later be built into patterns. All right, next one. So I jump back. I jump to alerts now, and especially to threat situation last hour. So when the monitoring page was in a whatever 10,000 meters height or 10,000 feet height, whatever, and now we go down to 3,000, 2,000 feet maybe, and look into really which alerts happened the last hour and how do they correlate to each other. That is what we do with threat situation last hour. And what you see here is that this all seems to belong together, because aren't it some attacks on the machinery, and that all happened in one system. The bigger the circle, the more often such entity is involved in security alerts. And for example, this all happened in system S4H client 100. And I can see as well users that were involved here. User firefighter was involved. User ETD admin, so it's an administration user, is involved as well. User data dictionary, some user Kirk is involved. And then the question is, which alerts did happen there? Yeah, so attack user firefighter unlock, for example. I could even jump into that alert. I will show that in a moment. Security relevant policy changes took place. Yeah, for example, security audit log was switched off. Yeah, so Arndt switched off the security audit log, and you saw that, and that is an alert that we raise then here, and then I can jump into that, find out from here and jump into the alert, or I can as well switch to the alert list and show that in an alert list. I just do that. And then I see all these alerts in the alert list. And for example, if I look into user firefighter unlock or security relevant policy change, security audit log switched off. Yeah. So by that, I can really jump into that alert, doing that right now. Alert number 87 something. And then I can look into additional details. So I can see it happened in that system. That was the measurement information that we got out of the alert. And I can even jump into the triggering events that raised the alert. So it was 2 triggering events. I will jump to these alerts and I get all and any detail of these events. Yeah, I see it was user firefighter. This user firefighter was acting in S4H100. It was this IP address. It was this technical event. It was something about audit policy. It was this application server. It was, by the way, this end user machine ID and this IP address. And by that, I can look into each and any detail that we got out of that. And based on this event, we raised the alert that the security audit log was switched off. And I can look into the original data, which is looking like that. So we get that out of the SAP system. And we make this normalized data out of it, which is rather better to interpret because we have normalized attributes, semantic attributes, and semantic events, which show as well the information of what really happened in the system in a human readable format. I will show that in a moment. So by that, I can jump into these alerts, really look into the alert list, look into each and any alert in a very detailed. And what I can do, I can process all the alerts within SAP Enterprise Threat Detection. So I do not need to jump into a ticketing system. I can do that, but I do not need to. I can just say, okay, if this is something that belongs together, then I can click on the ones that belong together. So user firefighter was unlocked, security relevant policy changes were done by user firefighter. He did an he switched the audit log off, etc. And then I can start an investigation. And I can start the investigation freestyle. Then I need to fill in everything, but I can create investigation templates. And I do that. And by that, I can use an information disclosure template and write down user firefighter doing that and that, adding that to the investigation. And then I already created one investigation containing n alerts, and you can put in whatever additional data, not only alerts, objects, attachments, discussions, screenshots, etc. Okay. So I just wanted to show that it's an extra exercise within your within your exercises document. So by that, I do not go into any detail with investigations. As said, it's an extra exercise. I come to one important thing that gives a lot of answers on which kind of attributes do we have, what are the explanations for these attributes, and which kind of semantic events do we provide. And that is the knowledge base in SAP Enterprise Threat Detection. The knowledge base contains a lot of information. It contains all the information about semantic events. So these are all the semantic events that we deliver. For example, database table create failure, or data download, or whatever, attack communication HTTP request allow, for example, if it comes to firewalls, etc. And you always get as well a small explanation what that event means. And these are all events that you will later see in the forensic lab, and that can be interpreted in exactly that way. We even have a kind of a pattern for creating such events. Yeah, so this is a classification. This is a detailed information, and that is the action Communication is the classification. HTTP request is a detailed information, and allow is the action. If you look at the semantic attributes, we have, as I said, we normalize all that data, and all the semantic attributes into which we can normalize the data, which are really database table fields of our log events table, are shown here. For example, generic action, network host name, network IP address, parameter names, service program name, service transaction name. These are as well typical use cases in an SAP system. Yeah, so are typical attributes that come out of an SAP system, SAP transaction name, for example. So by that you get, for each and any of these attributes, you get as well a small explanation, so that you find what it is, even what kind of database type it is, or field type it is. So this is all shown in here and helps you a lot of understanding what we mean with a semantic attribute. And an additional one is the log types that we support. So we support a lot of log types coming out of SAP systems. As we said, we created here as well some demo log types, for example, a file change log or a line change log. I will come to that in a later demo. So by that, knowledge base helps you to understand what we see in all ETD, in the forensic lab, and in other fields and in other tiles of the system. All right. So very important as well, we do not only provide or look at log data, we provide as well, and we download as well, semantic or metadata out of the system. So out of an SAP system, we download metadata for the system itself. For example, is it a production system? Is it a test system? And we download metadata for users. Is this a dialog user? Which user group is this user of? Which authorizations does this user have? And so on. So by that, this user information metadata and the system information metadata can be as well used in order to create patterns, which means you can create a better quality of patterns because you know this is a productive system, and in a productive system, this and that is not allowed. Okay, by that, I would look into metadata for system administration. And this is a demo system. You see a lot of generated tests system data, but one system is really a real one where we downloaded the metadata is this S4H system. And what you see here already, so we declared in a database table T000 of the S4HANA system that this is a test client and this is a production client. Whether this makes sense or not, I do not care right now. We only have that one system. And if I look into that data, one second. I thought I maintained that somewhere. Then I can see, okay, we downloaded as metadata that this was a productive system, that this is the system group, that this is an active system, that this is the database host, which database version is it. So some additional information is there, but you can maintain some data as well, like if this system is attacked via an attack against confidentiality, how critical is that? This is a very high risk if the system fails due to an attack about confidentiality. Then we think about system integrity, which is basis system integrity. Someone changes configuration, for example, and data integrity, which means business data like business partners, orders, price lists, or whatever are banking information are changed. And if it is critical about availability. So you can maintain that. And at the end, if you have an alert, which is a critical risk about confidentiality, and your system is critical related to confidentiality, then you get a high alert score. So by that, we multiply out the alert criticality related to these categories with the system criticality related to these categories. And by that, we get an additional alert score that ranges between 0 and 100. Okay, so that's just about the systems and the system metadata. And now I would like to go into the so-called forensic lab, because we did all the preparations that you can understand what happened in the forensic lab. And I jump into the forensic lab right now, and there you see all these things that I spoke about. Here you see the log data that just arrives in the system. Here you see the systems that arrive in the system. Here you see the semantic events that arrive in the system. For example, a user logon. Yeah, so technical events are, for example, out of security audit log AU1, and we translate that to user logon. And if I click down on this drop-down box, I see all these semantic attributes that are described in the knowledge base with each small description. So by that, we make use of the semantic attributes by filtering, and we make use of the log types, and we make use of these semantic events. And this is the log data of the last 15 minutes, but I can for sure change it to the last hour. And what I see here are then a lot of more additional semantic events, because Arndt did some attacks there. And what I can now look at, I can create a filtering and a pattern within the forensic lab. This is the tool to do forensic analysis, to do user behavioral analysis, and to create your own charts and patterns. And I will show a very short demo on that. So for example, I can look at user logon. And if I click on such a semantic event, I can add this semantic event to the filter path. And so this is the filter path area here, where I see the filtering, and this is the preview area. And now I see out of the 21,000 events, there are 3,200 events that are related to user logons. And if I now would like to see what happened really from who did do these user logons, out of which systems do these user logons come, then I need to create a chart or a pattern, and I find that out. I see already in the preview there are 580 user logons in client 000 and 406 in client 100, but nevertheless I can create a chart and find out how is it distributed via users, via system, and maybe some other information. So by that I can create a chart now. Then I create that chart. And now I can start grouping on what I want to see. I would like to see how is it distributed over the different systems that are connected to SAP Enterprise Threat Detection. And then I see, okay, there are a lot of logons on the HANA database that is connected, and there are some logons for the client 000 and 100 of the two systems, or of the one S/4HANA system that is connected. And I would like to see really via which account. We have different roles here: account name acting, initiating, targeted. And I just group then by system and user, and then you see, okay, there was, for example, a logon by user Kirk, by user firefighter, by user admin, by support users, etc., in the different systems. And that is how a chart looks like. And if I think, oh, this is suspicious now, yeah, then I could really create a pattern and do exactly the same. But if I create a pattern now, then I have a threshold, can do the same grouping. I don't do it. It's a special additional exercise that you can do. And by that, I can say, okay, if the threshold is more than 500 logons by one user in one system, then create an alert. If there are critical downloads, if there are critical access to critical database tables, etc. This is all standard patterns that we have in SAP Enterprise Threat Detection. Okay, so that is the forensic lab. And as said, there will be an additional exercise. I come to the last part of the of that round trip. I come to the pseudonym. No, it's not the last part. I come to the pseudonymization functionality. In this system, I switched off pseudonymization so that you can see all the names clear. But if this is not the case and you have the need from a compliance point of view and data privacy point of view to pseudonymize your user names, then you need to resolve the users, and you can enter the pseudonym as you found it from an evidence point of view. This one was the critical guy. And if I then resolve that, then I can find the real name of that user. This is a special examination or exercise as well. And you can do that later on. I jump over system monitoring and I go to record of actions. If it comes to compliance aspects, we have a self-monitoring in SAP Enterprise Threat Detection, which is called record of actions. So I will jump to that and I can find out what did I do, or what did someone do in the system. And we use that log as well in order to create our own alerts via self-monitoring. For sure, you can export that to somewhere else and monitor what happens within SAP Enterprise Threat Detection in another system if you want. And for here, for example, with my user demo 01, I created an investigation. So investigation was created. It was investigation number 9. I could even jump to investigation number 9. And before that, I changed the alert. I set it from open to investigation triggered because I put it into an investigation. These 4 alerts, for example, I created that investigation. I switched off the pseudonymization, just what I said. So I set it from active to inactive so that you can read that. You get all this information, you get technical information in here, and it helps you a lot to be compliant and to find out if even suspicious activities would happen within SAP Enterprise Threat Detection, not only within your S/4HANA systems. Okay, then I jump quickly to the settings. The settings are, you have a special role for that, as well as you have a special role for deep pseudonymization. So this is a very special thing. And there you can, for example, manage the storage. You can say, what will be my retention time in order to store the log data? If I would like to send alerts out of SAP Enterprise Threat Detection, for example, to my CM system in the Security Operating Center, which could be Splunk, QRadar, others, then I could define the base URL here. I could define whether this is a JSON, a syslog format JSON, or a special JSON in a Splunk format. We did that with Splunk development some years ago. We can define whether we would like to have triggering events within that. So not only the alerts arrive then at the endpoint where you send it, but as well the events that I showed in a detailed way that triggered the alert. And I can filter which alerts I would like to send to, for example, to a SIEM or to a data lake or to someone else or to something else. And I can as well say the alert status shall be updated to the value forwarded. And by that, so I can manage the alert publishing within here. I can create such pattern filters, for example, forward to a SIEM. There I have at that moment 4 different patterns in, and I can create additional use cases in or add additional use cases with the time. If it comes to content replication, we can have a 2-tier landscape. And if it comes to content replication, we have a pre-production system and a production system. In the pre-production system, you model your patterns, and in the production system, you run your patterns. And we have kind of a transport mechanism from the pre-prod system to the prod system. After you model the pattern, you can move them and transport them to the prod system within ETD and then run them in the productive system. You can switch between the time zone, local time, or UTC, depending on how your organization works. If the organization is all located in one time zone, then we suggest local time because it's easier. If the security organization is distributed over different time zones over the world, then we suggest UTC because it's easier to speak about on a phone, for example, and to compare. Anomaly detection, there are some settings in order to collect data already from the beginning, although you might not use it now, but you would like to use it. By that, it can already start collecting data. You can define custom values for investigations or for workspaces. So, for example, if I look at investigations, I can look at management visibility as an example and define additional attributes for investigations, for example, in order to define a workflow. Right. Workload management, we suggest to switch it on. Pseudonymization, so as I said, I switched it off, but it is a question of as well as how the organization needs it from a compliance reason, and it can be switched on or off. All right. When I'm through with the first exercise, and that is exactly what you would do, you would first do that round trip in order to become familiar, and later you would go into any detail like forensic lab, create your own use cases and patterns, looking at monitoring pages, etc. Okay, so I finished with that basic demo right now. And do we have special attacks that we would like to show?
Yes, for sure. We can show something here.
You changed your clothes, yeah, that is critical.
It's getting cold here. So maybe I start sharing my screen.
Yes, then I stop sharing my screen. 1 second. Okay.
So maybe a quite usual thing for hackers is the generic DB access via the SAP system, just simply carried out via transaction SE16. Yeah, we're in a very secure system here. So SE16 actually is already locked in the system. So maybe we can just simply go to SM01 dev and check out the locked transactions here, and just simply unlock the transaction within the SAP system so we can access SE16. So that should work now. Yes, so, and yeah, from here we can actually have access to any kind of business table within the SAP environment. And yeah, maybe not a business table, but table USR02 is often very interesting for hackers, since it holds all the users and the password hashes to the users. So even often customers or organizations still have B code passwords in here, or passcodes. I just would have to scroll to the right, then I can see the passcodes as well. So, and as well, the newer passwords are being hashed in here as well. So we can just simply go into our go to firefighter. So since we know the password of user firefighter, and here we can see in this system the B code is already set to 0. That's how it should look like in your system as well. And yeah, that's the passcode. That was the second generation of password hashes in SAP, that's set to 0 as well. So no old passwords are stored in here, which is very often a problem, since I only have to go back to these old passwords, and they can easily be recalculated in any kind of software you might know, and then log on to the system via this old passwords eventually. So, but this is the password hash of my user firefighter. That's a salted password hash. So maybe I just clipboard this password hash here. So then we might go to user demo 5. Maybe we do have debugging authorizations in the system. So yep, that's great. And then we can just simply proceed into the debugger, and we debug a little bit the user demo 05 here. And as you know, whoever entered SE16 before, you all know this little trick here to just double click on the code. And that's show here at the moment. I cannot edit within SE16, but if I can just enter edit here, then I can proceed with the unwanted, I will call it, OK code for this screen. And now all the fields get editable, and I just simply delete the password hash, the old password hash, and put in the password hash of my user firefighter into the system, and then maybe just leave the transaction again and try to log on with user demo05. So that is usually happening maybe a week later, 2 months later, after somebody spied out the password hashes, or even was able to have something like this kind of a debugging session here. Demo05 is my user, and it should be this password. And log on in English, no, in English. Hopefully that works. Name or password incorrect, demo05. I'll just give it one more try. Okay. That was my mistake. So I have to give it a new password, and then up, and we're in the system. And we see that one failed attempt as well. And then we can start working with user demo05 inside of the system. So I terminate that session. And we're back in with user firefighter. Another way actually how to execute something like SE16 in the SAP environment would be to go to a transaction SE38, I think that was. Oops. Maybe we put a slash in front and an N. That helps quite much. And we just simply have a look at the report RSDBA 850. So Michael gets some more information in Enterprise Threat Detection about my behavior here. So within there, we do have the SQL editor, and maybe we can just simply select start from USR02. And just quickly execute this, and that's the result. So there's various options to have such a generic data access here within the SAP system. So that can not only be table USR02, that could be any other business table within the SAP system. So with this, I think I can pass the duty over to Michael.
So this is the alert list, and you saw already we went through it in the round trip. A critical transaction was unlocked in the system. There was an access to a critical database table. Here this user firefighter in system ID S4H100 accessed database table user 02. So you get that information, for example. Then debugging in critical systems, you see user firefighter with that end user machine ID in that system did a debugging session, and so on. So this is all shown in a very detail in that in these alerts. I now would like to go to the forensic lab in order to show to go into each and any detail. And in the forensic lab, I told you I showed how to filter and how to create your own patterns and alerts. And this can be saved as a workspace if you created your own use cases. And these workspaces then can be reused. The patterns and charts can be reused, for example, in a monitoring page. And SAP delivers these workspaces just as you can model. We at SAP model that as well and deliver exactly that as a content. So this is all the content that we deliver within SAP Enterprise Threat Detection. And I created a demo use case about, or a demo workspace about user firefighter, because firefighter is the bad guy. We already saw that, yeah. And then I see, okay, firefighter actions, and maybe not about the last 15 minutes, but maybe about the last 2 hours, looking what user firefighter did in the system. And then I see this path, this filter path is exactly the alert user firefighter unlocked, not a critical alert, but it's just a triggering alert, so that we see that this happened. And then, for example, the administrators or the security analysts can check what the user can check real time what the user firefighter did. I will add one more additional use case to the attacks that we have, namely change a file on the operating system. So by that, we're looking at the gateway data, and I open the security info here. So the sec info file, hopefully it opens. It should open. Or maybe I need to refresh. Ah, session gone. Somehow the session went away, it looks like. I try it once more. Okay. So I try to edit the sec info file on the operating system right now. It opens on the other side, and I can change that, for example. Okay, I can add another line, for example. So TP user is XYZ as an example. Or I can change from star to non-star, or from non-star to star, and or from wildcards to non-wildcards. And so by that I change that now, and I can, as we have the possibility to digest not only SAP log data, but as well, for example, the audit D log from Linux, which is a standard service in the Linux system. We can look into that as well. So I will show that in a moment in the forensic. I open another forensic lab. It's just another kind of a demo. And we have two kind of lookings at that data. One part of that data is coming via audit D. As I said, we configured that on the Linux side. This is without any agent, let's say. And there I can look into, for example, which resource names. The resource name is an attribute, which resource name was looked at, and I can already see that the resource sec info was changed. Yeah, so by that I see as well, this is a file change event. So this is what we can, but we cannot see too much out of the audit D, because it is not too rich with information. I can, for example, look at the original data here, and I see some data. I see the information that we created a pass or a category for that, that we see the whole path for that, that we get some information about user IDs, numbers, and some other information that is in there, but it's not too rich with information. If we would like to have that more rich, then we can create an agent, and I created such an agent, which is a POC that we did some time ago, and it creates an own file change log. So by that I can look into a file line change log and find out whether we can have more additional information. And I see one line was created in a resource which is called resource name. And I can look into the path. Where is that? Where was that Where is that located? It's in sub NMNT S4H global. And let's look at what line was it. And this line was created. And you see, yeah, I added this user XYZ, so I can go into each and any detail. And I can go to each and any detail about what did, and I jump back to my firefighter use case. What did my firefighter user do? And here I saw the alert, and here I see just all the events related to user firefighter. That means these 140 events are a user behavioral analysis already, looking into this, what did the user firefighter do? And then I see all the semantic events that this user did or was looking at, and all the log events that came out of the actions of user firefighter. Read access logging, user change log, system log, security audit log, business transaction log. And I can jump into one or two of such attributes like data monitored, data access. I add that to a path and find out, yeah, it happened in system S4H. I can look into which transaction was that? Service transaction name, as I said. So this is, service program name maybe. In which program did that happen? It happened in RSDBA 850, where there was a monitored data access. And it came out of read access logging. Yeah, so by that I can look at parameter names, and I find out, yeah, well, yes, this was an SQL statement that was created, and I would like to look at really which SQL statement was it. Oops, this was the wrong one. Parameter value. And I can even see statement select star from user 02 was successfully executed. So I get the information very exactly in that with the read access logging, for example. So this is one example to look into it more detail. I can go to that edit button here and select just another semantic event in order to do one more detailed check. And one more is database data select generic, for example. This is what we normally see with transaction SE16. And what I see here is resource name as well. What was looked at? It was database table user 02, or service transaction name. It was in transaction SE16. Which host name was it? Network host IP address. This IP address. Network host name. So by that I can go into each and any detail here as well in order to find out. So that's the end user machine of ARNT system ID. So by that I can check for each and any of these single attributes, or I can create again own charts and patterns. If I would like to see now what happened on a time range, I can just look into the normalized data of these 140 events. And then I get a list of all the normalized data here, already ordered by time. So this was the newest event. The older events are at the very beginning. So for example, in the system SU0 or in transaction SU01, the user was unlocked. User firefighter was unlocked, for example. By that end user machine ID, then I can see there were some calls of special programs. Later on, there was an access to transaction SE16, to transaction SM01 dev to unlock transaction SE16. So this was our executable run failure. He tried first, then it did not work, then he unlocked, and then it was an additional executable run, but then SE16 was successfully connected. Then I can look into what additional happened. Yeah, I see all the event log. I see the semantic events, user debugging. Oops, sorry, executable run. user debug and variable alter, and so on. Database data select generic. Database table was user 02 in transaction SE16. It was this program name. So by that I get all this information. I can download that as additional evidences, and I can use these and put them into an investigation, for example, as an additional attachment. So I stopped with the demo right now because we wanted to show just an attack defense scenario. Arndt was the attacker, and I tried to find out what all he did. And I think I was really successful to find out what he did and what critical things he did via looking at the alerts and via looking at the users he used in order to find out all the detailed events on that. All right, so I'm stopping with the demo right now. And we are coming to the last part of that presentation, namely how to access the systems. If you would like to, please only subscribe if you like to, because we created some systems for you and we need to distribute you to the systems if you are interested. The exercise document you can already download, no issue. But if you really would like to do a hands-on, then we created some information for you. So we just cannot provide a system and say, please all N100 users go to that system, because we need to create an own user for you, or relate your subscription to one user that we provide to you, and to a certain system that we provide to you as well. Aren't you share?
Trying to share screen, yes.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, wonderful. Thanks a lot. Yeah, so that's right. And we will open these systems on which you will have access until Friday, 26th of November, so that you have a time to do your self-paced exercises. And the opening times are corresponding to your time zone. So please send a mail to me. I will write that into the chat right now, hopefully.
It's on the thank you slide later on.
We have a slide, so you will see my mail address, and please send me a mail and write as well the time zone which you need, for which you need the system, and then we will send back a user, a system URL, and the information how to access. So how to access the exercise document? There will be as well a later provided link to the exercise document. You either can get it out of the Git, out of the TechEd GitHub, or out of another link that is contained within the demo system and the exercises system. So as you share the system with different users, please only use your user and don't lock or change other users. You have high privileges in the system, for example, in the SAP system, in order to really try out suspicious activities and do them. But please don't misuse it, because you would really disturb the other users or the other participants' activities there. So please don't destroy the system. As a browser, please use Google Firefox, Microsoft Edge on Chromium basis. And one more additional hint: the HTTP connect might lead to a page which tells you about wrong certificate handling and insecure connect. You can ignore that. Your data is nevertheless secured, but you get that error due to a certificate issue. We could not remove that. So the data exchange is encrypted. And ignore the warning and continue to the web page via go to advanced and continue. Next page, please. So that is just what you saw on as an exercise document. That is how your exercise document will look like. You will have access to the PDF document. Next slide, please. And just in case of issues, yeah. So we found out in some cases you do not have the right to access an internet based SAP logon via SAP GUI, for example, then we really cannot help you, and you would not be able to exercise to do the exercises. So we cannot guarantee that the connect always works from each and every place, especially if your company has certain security restrictions to connect to an S/4HANA system or to connect to any kind of a cloud system, whatever, then okay, it just would not work. This does not happen oftenly, so in very many cases it will work, but just be aware, sometimes it does not work, and then we really cannot help you, unfortunately. In case of questions related to the exercises, then please send an additional mail and we try to help you via mail. All right, so then I'm through with the additional information. Maybe we can go to the very last and Q&A. So I do not know whether we got some.
Yeah, I think we've tried to answer as many questions as possible already in the chat. So Anne-Marie was a great help there again.
Oh, okay.
So she joined the session too and was starting answering many questions already, and I hope we answered all of the questions.
Okay, wonderful. Then maybe we can jump to the next slide, maybe.
Next, yeah, well, next slide. This one is then the general offering to the TechEd learning offerings to accelerate your career. So you can just have a go to the link and be more of an SAP expert with the SAP learnings that are offered. Right. Just move to the page and have a look. And then, Michael?
Yeah, so this is the contact information. If you would like to subscribe to really doing the exercises, then please send a mail to m.schmidt@sap.com. But only really if you want to do it, because it's really some effort to subscribe you to a system. But nevertheless, for sure, we will do it. And that was the preparation session for being able to doing the exercises. With these words, I think we are through. Oh, we are exactly at the end of the time. Thank you very much.